happy to be back again this week. We are in a new sermon series called, well, we're in our third week of the sermon series now, and it's called Game Changers. And we're
Hmm.
looking at games, and this week it's Monopoly.
Monopoly. Do you realize that once we finish this sermon, our sermon series will be half over?
Over, so we're not in a new one, we're almost halfway through.
Yeah.
I love it. So anyway, to start off, we are doing Monopoly this week, as we just mentioned, but Pastor Diane, I have a question for you.
Okay.
Okay, so let me get my page here, and it says here, what is the root of all evil?
Money.
Is
Oh,
it?
wait. No, no, no. That's what we always say, though.
It is, isn't it?
Oh my goodness. I
The
don't know
root of
how
all
many
evil is
times
money.
I don't know how many times I've heard people say that. People in the church. Money is the root of all evil. Well, it's not money that's the root of all evil. It's the love of money that is the root of all evil. That's what Paul wrote to Timothy in his first letter. For the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. Some people, eager for money, have wandered from the faith and pierced themselves with many griefs. And I think
Mhm.
it's good to know that it's not money that's the root of all evil. It's our attitude towards it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when we think of board games, like one of the most popular money games has to be Monopoly.
Yep.
Has to be Monopoly.
I mean,
Uh,
there's lots of different games dealing with money. Like off the top of my head, I can think of three others,
yeah,
but nobody else really talks about them. Have you heard of Easy Money?
I have heard of it, but I've never played it.
We had it. I didn't want to buy it to begin with because I thought, oh, that's just awful. But it was such a fun game. Um,
Hmm,
Masterpiece, where you're buying and selling works of art and you don't know what the value of them is. Is
right.
it a forgery? And Payday.
Payday, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Payday was pretty popular as well, but nothing compares to Monopoly when financial things come around, like,
Uh-huh.
I mean, did you must have played Monopoly.
Oh my goodness. Yes.
Yeah.
My sister owned the board game. If my parents wanted to get a board game for us kids and wanted it to last, they'd always give it to her.
Really, and
And
not you.
well, she was older. She was 6 years older, so she was more
Mhm.
mature and would take better care of things than a little kid. I mean, I get
True.
it.
Yep.
Um, but my brother and I love to play Monopoly. And we would actually, during March break, we would start playing early in the week and the game would last all week long.
Yeah, and it
Yeah.
can.
Oh, yeah.
It can last a long time. And you can play Monopoly and nobody wins and nobody loses after like 7 hours of play. Well, here's a little trivia for you about Monopoly. Monopoly was actually invented in 1903 by Lizzie Magie in the United States, but it didn't start as Monopoly. It started as the landlord's game.
The landlord's game. Okay.
A landlord's game, and it was taken over by Parker Brothers, and they changed it a little bit, and it has become the monopoly that it is today. Now I think Hasbro has taken it over now, right?
I believe so, yes. In
Yeah.
1991.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when I know that I'm going to leave it to you, but uh, during the beginning of the week, because part of sermon prep is you do your sermon, like we're doing our sermon today. Well, almost immediately you start thinking about the next sermon,
Mhm.
right?
Yep.
And so early in the week, I was thinking about Monopoly, and it was going to end up a sermon much like we had last week, where it's like, don't live your life like a game of Sorry,
Right?
don't live your life like a game of Monopoly. But you had a really interesting thing happen to you this week that really changed my mindset.
It really did. And I was actually, when we were doing the planning for our series and we came up with Monopoly, we talked about, vague taglines or whatever. And
Yeah.
and at that time it was going to be, the accumulation of stuff.
That's exactly what we had wrote on our document, the
Yeah.
accumulation of stuff.
Well,
Yep.
I was on Facebook and a friend of mine posted a picture, and they had been without power, so they broke out the board game Monopoly and were playing that while the power was out. And so I commented on it and I said, "Funny, you should mention this because I'm preaching on Monopoly. Going to be doing a parable of modern day games, and any suggestions?" I mean, that was just sort of a, uh, you know, I didn't expect anything back, but it was Dustin Day. If any of you know him, he's amazing. I love the way his mind works. But he wrote back, "My only advice is don't give away that which is value. Don't give away that which is valuable so freely." And he said that his wife had given their son, was it Park Place or Boardwalk, traded it so easily, and it was the beginning of the end.
You get those two and you get a hotel on that, man, you're in for trouble.
Oh yeah, well, no, everybody else is.
Everybody else is, yeah.
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 And immediately when I read that, like Peggy, when I shared it with her, she thought the same thing. That verse from Matthew 7, don't cast your pearls before swine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or they may
So,
trample them under their feet and turn and tear you into pieces.
but
That's
oh, go ahead.
that immediately popped in my head.
Yeah. Yeah.
Immediately.
And that one quick little note changed our whole direction, because I thought, how can we take something that, is all about beating the other guy out? How can we take that and put a positive spin on it? But Jesus did when he told the parable when he told the parable of the shrewd business manager. I
Yeah.
mean, he says this guy was going to be fired. His master found out he wasn't taking good care of the books or something, and he went to the people that owed his master money and said, "How much do you owe him? Oh, you owe him $10? Just put down 5." And he thought to himself, "When I get booted out of here, I will have someplace to go." And he was commended for that behavior. And I still struggle with this parable, because how can you commend somebody for dishonest behavior and stealing from your boss? But Jesus does. He said that we need to be more like the worldly to reach the worldly. We need to understand the worldly in order to reach them. And I'm getting way off track here, but we can take the game of Monopoly and take the positives from it and say, this is what we can learn.
And then once we got past the throwing your pearls before swine, we started talking about it, and we're like, John Wesley had a quote. What was that again? And it went something like this: earn all you can, save all you can, and give all you can.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a principle that he lived by. And
Yes.
He determined how much he could live on, and he would put that aside, and everything else, if he made more money, he didn't go, oh well, we're making more money now, let's spend more money, because we always spend beyond our means, right? Most of us do. We need new furniture. What do? Put it on credit or go to a layaway, or don't pay until 2050 or something.
Even now, I every once in a while I look at the computer and see, hey, how much would it cost to upgrade this perfectly well working phone? I don't need a new phone.
Yeah. Oh,
But
and
John
we're
Wesley
in
didn't do that.
technological age too, like, and planned obsolescence and, you know, all of these things, like you buy something and you have it for 5 years, you have a warranty for 5 years, and it's gonna break down at 5 years, one day.
Mhm.
You all know what I mean, right? But I love that. It's so simple. Earn all you can, save all you can, and give all you can. And I think that we can take this quote by John Wesley and apply it to the game of Monopoly. So just trust us on this, and we will reveal some things about this as we go along. But one of the things, I wanted to look up what benefits there are for playing Monopoly. Like as children, and as adults even, what are some of the benefits of playing Monopoly? And I found this on the web, and it says one of the best ways to teach kids about finance, money, and life skills is by playing Monopoly. There are so many money and life lessons in this game. It teaches kids how to strategize, plan ahead, do math, negotiate with others, deal with winning or losing circumstances, and control their emotions.
Wow,
That's pretty intense, isn't it?
that is.
Some of the psychological benefits of playing Monopoly. Now, I mean, some of these can be, uh, you know, cross board to other games as well. But I was like, wow, that's pretty. I like that. So we're going to take a positive spin on
Yes.
Monopoly.
And
Go
I
figure.
love how John Wesley didn't condemn money.
No,
He said money has a purpose, and it's our attitude towards money that is important.
yeah, yeah.
So, yeah.
Which leads us to point one, and it's going to be pretty simple. Earn all you can.
Earn all you can. Yep.
Because in the game of Monopoly, it's about earning as much as you can with the skills and the abilities that you have.
Yep. The winner of the
Everybody
game,
in, what's that?
the winner of the game is the one who
The
has the
winner.
most money at the end.
And you enter into the game knowing that you have to make your way around the board. Once you pass go, you get your $200. That's the accumulation. That's your work. You've gone around the board once. You start with a little bit in the bank, and as you go by, you get your weekly pay or monthly pay, however long it takes you. I'm going to say it's 4 weeks because there's 4 sides to a board. So you get paid monthly, $200 a month, right? For pass and go.
And you know what? That doesn't seem like a lot now, but if you think to when the board game first came out in 1935, that was huge. Oh, that was
Yeah,
a big payday.
that
Um,
was a big payday.
so we need to work
Yeah.
in order to get money. I mean, there has to be something that we do, a service we provide or a product that we sell, to earn money. And how often have you heard people say, oh, this working, it's part of the curse from the fall of mankind? But it wasn't part of the
Mm-mm,
curse.
mm-mm.
When God set Adam and Eve in the garden, one of their task was to take care of the garden. If you've ever had a garden, you know that that's work. it's
You
it's
have to
huge
till
work.
that thing every year. I tell you, there was work before the fall. So,
Yep.
they had to name all the animals. That was work,
Yep.
right? um, in First Corinthians, and this sermon is going to be a little bit different in that we are just going to be throwing scripture at these points because we want to really sort of show that the Bible does say that we do have to do these things. We do have to work in point 1. 1 Corinthians 10:31 says, so whenever you eat or drink or whatever you do it all for the glory of God. So whatever you do, first and foremost, we are doing it for God's glory because as Christians, our light shines before others. And whatever we do, whatever attitude we have towards our work, will shine a light to other people around us. And we do it to glorify God.
Yes, we do. Paul also writes to the church at Colossus in chapter 3, verses 23 and 24. He says, whatever you do, work at it with all your heart, as working for the Lord, not for human masters, since you know that what you will receive, since you know that you will receive an inheritance from the Lord as a reward. It is the Lord Christ you are serving. I mean, it goes right along with what he said to the Corinthians. You know, we often, it really does. You know, we often think, oh, I work for ABC company. Well, yes, but we need to work for them as if we are working for the Lord.
Yeah. And then Proverbs 10 verse 4, and I love Proverbs, little tiny sayings that just have a lot of punch to them.
Oh.
It says, lazy hands makes for poverty, but diligent hands bring wealth.
Yeah, those. Oh.
I mean, when your hands are working, especially if you're working for pay, you're working to produce something. Whether my hands are working in my garden, they're there to produce. If I do nothing, if somebody comes along and tills my soil for me and I do nothing with it, I'm not going to have any produce. My hands have to work at this.
Yeah.
Now there are exceptions to this. I mean, sometimes people are not able to because of physical health or things like that, and God makes a way and provides for that as well.
Yeah. Yes, he does. And we see that when God gave the law to Moses, there were provisions for people. There were provisions for those who didn't have. And one of those provisions that automatically comes to mind when I think of helping the poor is found in Leviticus chapter 19, verse 10. It says, do not go over your vineyard a second time or pick up the grapes that have fallen. Leave them for the poor and the foreigner. I am the Lord your God. And this was the law that Ruth and Naomi benefited from when they came back from Moab. Ruth went out to the fields and gleaned because they didn't harvest all the way, knowing that there were poor who maybe didn't have lands of their own. And God made a way, but they still had work to do. It wasn't picked for them and delivered to them. They still had to work. So John Wesley says, earn all you can. Earn all you can, but it doesn't stop there.
Doesn't stop there. No.
Nope.
So in the game Monopoly, you have to earn all you can, or you're supposed to earn all you can. But then comes point number 2, and I bet you'll know what it is.
Save all you can?
Save all you can. Now, this is a little bit different because in the game of Monopoly, you start and you understand the rules. You understand that you have to invest, that you have to make purchases in a time that is going to benefit you. Like, I need some railways, I need Park Avenue, and what's the other one? Park and Boardwalk. I need those two because they're the beginning and the end, right? But we start Monopoly understanding this concept. unfortunately, sometimes we don't understand this when we start life. We just go from week to week, month to month, pass and go, earning the $200 and living paycheck to paycheck to paycheck, right?
Yep.
Yep.
Been there,
And
done that. Couldn't afford the
we
t-shirt.
don't think about strategic planning
Right.
and how to take some money and to invest it, whether it's for our future, whether it's for our families, or whether it's for God's work. And we don't necessarily think in that way. We just think we've got to get through this week, got to get through this month, got to get through this year. And but people ask me, my daughter and I, we like to travel a little bit. And I remember being at Kingswood, and you'll know who I'm talking about. Um, Professor Starks and her husband, Richard. Richard would always say, instead of going out to a fancy restaurant to eat, I'd rather take that money, put it aside, and go on a trip somewhere. And that really stuck in my brain. I'm very strategic about what I spend and what I save in order to be able to do some things, in order to be able to tithe, in order to be able to give an offering, in order to be able to take a trip or something like that. But you have to cut back in one area and tighten your belt in one area in order to be able to do something in a different area. It's
So
not easy.
so his date nights at Costco for hot dogs is so that he can travel the world.
Yep. Yep.
Yep.
Do we have date nights at Costco for a hot dog?
Well, he posted just recently about that. Yeah.
So funny. But it's
Oh,
about strategy. It's about um, thinking ahead. And the Bible really does say quite a bit about thinking ahead.
it does. And before I share the first scripture, in the game of Monopoly, it's not just about planning ahead that, okay, I need to get this property and whatnot. It's also about once you have your properties, also keeping a little bit of an emergency fund, because you never know when you're going to land on a hotel that costs a lot of money. So
True. And then you've got to sell everything. I remember having to do that.
so many times. And I mean, it's a balancing act in the game of Monopoly.
Yeah.
Um, and maybe that is indicative of life in that it's shortened up and just really brought to the forefront. But we still have to do that. We have to have that idea of saving, earning, but also saving.
Yeah.
So the Bible does talk about saving. And this story from the Old Testament, from the book of Genesis, is the is the epitome of planning and saving. Genesis 41, verses 34 to 36. Joseph is brought before Pharaoh to interpret a dream. You probably know the story. Well, Joseph gives this advice: let Pharaoh appoint commissioners over the land to take a fifth of the harvest of Egypt during the 7 years of abundance. They should collect all the food of these good years that are coming and store up the grain under the authority of Pharaoh to be kept in the cities for food. This food should be held in reserve for the country to be used during the 7 years of famine that will come upon Egypt, so that the country may not be ruined by famine. That idea of saving up for a rainy day, or in Joseph's case, 7 years of no rainy days. So it's the and there's other verses to go along with this to tell us how important it is to plan ahead.
Yeah, we've got, I'm going to give you two here real quick. Luke 14:28, and it says, this is so simple and so easy. Suppose one of you wants to build a tower. Okay. Wouldn't you first sit down to estimate the cost to see if you have enough money to complete it? What kind of person starts to build a tower and then all of a sudden halfway through it's like, I'm out of money, right? Wouldn't you gather all your building materials first before
Yeah.
you started that?
Yeah.
Imagine doing a roof like that.
Well, I've got a camp over at West Shazy, and
Okay.
currently the steps are some cinder blocks just piled on top of each other.
Okay.
And it works. It's a little bit wobbly, but I know where the wobble is, so not a big deal. But I want to put a wooden structure, something more permanent and stable.
Mm-hmm.
And I got somebody to give me a list of what do I need and will you help me build it? And I'm not going to start it unless I know I have the money to complete it.
So you're being wise.
I try.
And then Proverbs 15:22, it says, plans fail for lack of counsel, but with many advisors, they succeed. And I love that verse as well, just like your steps. Sometimes there's something that I don't know how to do. So I go out and I talk to people and I say to them, what's the best way to complete this? What do I need? And then sit down and figure out the cost and who it is that can help me. Those are
Right.
all such important things.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And this idea of helping each other is very important. 1 Corinthians 16:2, Paul writes, on the first day of every week, each one of you should set aside a sum of money in keeping with your income, saving it up so that when I come, no collections will have to be made.
Hmm.
You know, here in the States, when I moved here, I found out that as a pastor, I'm not really, it's a different tax system. So I have to make my own income tax remittances. If I wait until the end of the year, it's a huge bill. But I can make quarterly payments that don't, it doesn't hurt as much, and that's what Paul's talking about here, saving up so that when that time comes to give or to pay or to whatever, you've got that money set aside.
Right, right. Yeah, for sure. So we've got work all you can, save all you can, and what do you think the third point would be?
Give all you can.
Give all you can. It's John Wesley's quote. Like I just love it.
And
It,
here's the thing.
it's oh, go ahead.
Here's the thing. This isn't necessarily just about money. This
No.
can be our gifts and our talents. It can be our time.
Yeah.
How can we help others? It might be just sitting down and listening.
Yeah.
How can we give to others? And
And
as
and
we,
and and you are exactly right in that. And we talked about this through the preparation of this. This is although the game of Monopoly is all about money, these three principles of work all you can, save all you can, give all you can, it's about we belong to God. God made us and we are his servants. If you're a Christian, you're his servant on this land, on this earth. And we give, we listen, we console, we sit alongside, we hold someone's hand, we may give food, we may give money, we may give tactile tangible things, but sometimes it's the ministry of presence, we would call it, and being there, being that listening ear for somebody. So just don't apply this to money. This is everything.
for sure, for sure. Now, sometimes it's hard to see this principle in the game of Monopoly.
Yeah.
But I remember when we used to play, there's two piles of cards. There's the chance cards and there's the community chest. And I can't remember which one it was, but one of those cards was to pay the poor tax, it was giving money for the poor. It was a charity. And even in this game that was all about the accumulation of wealth, they understood the importance of charitable giving.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And depending on house rules, that money is sometimes put in the middle. And then there are different ways that you'd win the pot, almost like a little lottery. But,
Yeah.
but the idea is that there are taxes to be paid. There are places that we can give. So it's really important to give.
Hmm. Yeah,
And I
for
love
sure.
that Monopoly made that. I don't know if those are included in the game anymore or not, though.
I'm not sure. I have a newer version here and I couldn't find it. That's why I
Okay.
referenced back um, to my childhood and that version from the 1970s.
A poor tax.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, looking at some Bible verses that talk about this, James 4:17 says, "If anyone then knows the good they ought to do and doesn't do it, it is sin for them."
Mm-hmm. And then
And
Proverbs 22:16 says, one who oppresses the poor to increase his wealth or her wealth, and one who gives gifts to the rich, both come to poverty.
wow, oppressing the poor and then giving to people who don't need it. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. I could go off on a tangent here, but I'm going to stop myself.
We could go on a lot of tangents. A lot of
Oh,
squirrels in this one.
I guess so. Well, again, back to Paul's writing, 2 Corinthians chapter 9, verses 6 and 7. Remember this, whoever sows sparingly will also reap sparingly, and whoever sows generously will also reap generously. Each of you should give what you have decided in your heart to give, not reluctantly or under compulsion. Why? For God loves a cheerful giver. Again, it goes back to the attitude. The love of money is the root of evil, but God doesn't judge on what we give, but how we give.
Yeah. Yeah. And then Luke 3:11 says, John answered, anyone who has two shirts should share with the one who has none, and anyone who has food should do the same. That's pretty simple. If I've got two coats and I know somebody who needs one, I need to give that away. And if I've got an overabundance of food that I don't need, let's give it to someone who does.
Do you have an overabundance of food?
Not really. I have more than you have. That's why I buy stuff for you when I come over.
It's a
And
sort
then
of a running joke
she gets
between us.
overwhelmed with it all in her fridge.
I am such a weirdo. It causes anxiety when there's too much.
Anyway.
Oh, yeah. So, uh, that does just, it cuts right to it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That if you have the ability to give, you need to.
And it doesn't necessarily always have to be money,
Uh-huh.
as we've already discussed. I love, 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 love. Like we started out with John Wesley's quote of earn all you can, save all you can, give all you can. And we're going to end it sort of with another John Wesley quote that says this:
Uh-huh.
do all the good you can, by all the means you can, in all the ways you can, in all the places that you can, at all the times you can, to all the people you can, as long as ever you can.
Wow.
I think that first one that we quoted was a part of this one and it got separated somehow. That was probably all part of one sermon or something like that.
I'm sure it probably was part of the same body of work. John Wesley, we often think of him as a theologian, but he understood the importance of the social gospel, meeting people's needs, and what a great legacy we have. So, as you think about the board game Monopoly, don't think just about the accumulation of wealth, but what that can lead to. Earning all we can, saving all we can, giving all we can. Yeah. And I've been sharing with the people that attend the actual in-service worship gathering what we're going to be talking about next week, and challenging them to come up with ideas for the parables. So next week, we're going to be talking about the board game Scrabble. So here's a challenge for you. Can you come up with some parable ideas for the board game Scrabble? If you can, write them in the comments.
Write it down there in the comments. We would love to hear from you. So from myself, Pastor Peggy in Lower Haynesville.
And from me, Pastor Diane, here in beautiful downtown Norfolk, New York.
Wherever you find yourself today, find a way to be a
game changer.
Yay!
Bye, everyone.
Bye.